All right, guys, I'm here with Konrad Bouffard, owner of Round Rock Honey and Good Pickle Juice, which is, he'll tell you, coming out pretty soon. We're really excited about it. He's going to be a big sponsor of Night Owls Racing this year. So I just want to start off by saying thank you very much for joining the team.
Yeah.
So how'd you get started with the whole honey thing?
Well, I was a gardener because it's kind of the same way that I got into cycling. I was very poor. I was a perpetual student throughout most of my 20s. And I had, instead of a car, I had a bike. And instead of going to the grocery store, I had a garden. And I would trade vegetables and that sort of thing for, protein of whatever kind. And I worked at a restaurant, at night, to kind of at a steakhouse, because I had plenty of vegetables. So they would give you kind of a free meal before you got on your shift. And so through that, I developed an appreciation for the chemistry of food, and because I was constantly out of energy because I was riding my bike everywhere, I focused a lot on honey, because it's really, if you're constantly needing a quick boost of energy, honey is perfect for that. And then the other problem was muscle cramps, and so pickle juice was a natural solution to that.
That's awesome. Yeah, we love honey because for one, it tastes good, and we're really, really excited to be with you because it's all like regionally, like pretty local.
Yeah.
It's non-processed. You guys just like throw it through a sieve to get the like
That's right.
parts out, and that's pretty much it. It's a good, like, close to 50-50 mix of glucose and fructose, which
Right.
glucose gives you that like quick energy boost, and fructose is a little bit more like slower, sustained energy. So it's a really, really good mixture when you're hammering out like long 80-mile Cat 2 road races in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Wait, so you said you had a pretty substantial garden at the beginning, huh?
Yeah. It was also that year it rained a lot. I have more memories of riding in the rain in 2002 than I did in all the other years combined riding, and so a lot of rain was great for a lot of vegetables coming out of the garden. I had everything. I had tomatoes. I had zucchini, onions, squash. Zucchini is a squash. Lots of collard greens. A lot of edible flowers. I mean, so much watermelon. A lot of watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew, everything that I like came out of that garden. And for one person, I put a big. I used most of it, but I also had 12 fruit trees. So so I would make a lot of smoothies and things like that, and then supplement the fruit and vegetables with about 2 to 4 ounces of protein, animal protein a day, and that was pretty good. I was also a heck of a lot thinner back then than I am now because I ate so much better. I mean, now it's like
and
you got
sounds
kids.
Like you're riding your bike a ton too.
Oh, I was, yeah. But I also was single, and I didn't have any kids, and so that kind of led to being able to kind of do more what you want, spend more time on things that only you like to do, and that made it that made it a lot of fun at the time. So, but anyway, So the honey company sprung out of the garden because I had 4 beehives in the garden.
And from the start, or was that once you?
From the start, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So originally, I'd lived up in Indiana, and I'd worked for an individual that had a music studio and a very nice restaurant, and essentially like a plantation or an estate where he had all these apple orchards.
Okay.
And he was also he wasn't a rider himself, but he would be on a motorcycle leading a lot of the road rides that went on up there. And so I lived on that estate and helped take care of the bees on an on and off basis, and that's kind of how I learned. But then also when I was here, I had the help of some more experienced beekeepers that really kind of showed me how to make the jump to a commercial level.
Oh, cool.
And then from there, kind of natural instinct took over. And now, we have over 4,000 hives, and we're in over 1,000 stores. So we're a much bigger company now, and it's a completely different skill set than just being that small garden farmer like it was back then.
Yeah.
So,
so you said 4,000 hives?
yeah.
How, like, what's the maintenance, like, how do you maintain all those and keep them up and running? And
I have really, really good, extremely well trained, and extremely hardworking employees. I also have some contractors that themselves are master beekeepers, and they go out, they help teach, they will manage and supervise all aspects of running the hives in a certain region for me. Like say, if we consider the city of Round Rock a region, there may be one person for that. Or if we consider the entire city of Texas region, I may have a second person for all the areas outside of Round Rock. And so I've just over the years have developed relationships with people that, you know, I've been very impressed with their ability. They're much more talented than I am. And so, you know, that's kind of the way that you end up being successful is you partner with people that are either much smarter or much more talented or much more hardworking than you, and I did all three of those things. And so I give them a lot of credit because Round Rock Honey grew in large part because of the people that make up Round Rock Honey. So
cool.
Yeah.
So like we were saying earlier, like your honey's pretty much the pure stuff, just with the little particle like bee parts and maybe branch parts filtered out or whatever. Now that you have 4,000 hives, I mean, you've done a lot of expanding, and when you expand a company like yours, I imagine there's a lot of energy that goes into like figuring out where to put those hives.
Yeah.
And making sure that there's not things to pollute the honey.
Yeah.
How do you go about that process?
So you can't stop honey from taking on pollutants or you know, things that could make it inedible. But what you can do is you can test it after it's harvested. And honey is remarkably good at cleaning itself. So let's say that, you know, some dirt or some sticks or leaves got into the honey, or even some chemical agents of whatever kind got in there. Honey is very good at isolating those things and floating them up to the top where you can skim them off. And so that, well, like I'll give you one example. The Mexican wildfires from I think about 8 years ago, there was a lot of ash in the air. It was very, very high content ash particles in the air. And I was very concerned because it was starting to show up a little bit in our honey. What we discovered was that the ash only settled on the surface of the honey. It was never in the mix of honey. Sorry, we have a little bit of noise there. Anyway, and it just floated to the top. And so what we could do is just skim that off and then retest it, and it tested clean after that point. So we also tested, we test frequently for all sorts of agrochemicals, but our solution to that is we place all of our hives on ranch land or undeveloped land and away from areas where you're going to find a lot of dumpsters that people put chemicals in, especially, you know, like say, I don't know, a dumpster behind a restaurant or something where you're going to get a lot of high fructose corn syrup. So the bees are in relatively isolated places, and because of that, the land that they're feeding off of is very clean land. One big surprise that we had early on is that we tried for a short time to put hives on organic farms, thinking that because they're an organic farm, they must be very, very clean. But what we ended up seeing was a lot of HMO pollens were coming back in the honey, as well as like high fructose corn syrup type sweeteners. And we were like, where is that coming from? And typically what it was from the workers on the farm that were leaving soda cans out or different things like that. So that's why it's important. So that's why it's important to have the hives on land where there's not too many people and no development and no farming either, even if it's organic farming. So anyway, that's how we control contaminants in the honey. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Well, you kind of answered it. So I was just talking about, or asking about controlling contaminants and also just figuring out where to put the hives, which you kind of said, like, it intuitively, it makes sense to stick it in like an organic garden, but it sounds like it makes more sense in reality to put it in an area that's isolated from humans and isolated from pretty much any kind of serious agriculture.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why we have a Volkswagen bus as one of our keys.
Which is awesome, by the way.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a perfect camping vehicle, But the other thing is that those things, not in every situation, but in a lot of situations, they're even better than say a Jeep, because they have the rear wheel drive and they sit high off the ground.
Okay.
So you can go deep into brush if you need to, just plow right through it. And sometimes you get stuck, sometimes you don't, but most of the time you don't. So that makes them a great vehicle. And the weight comparing, the load bearing capacity of a bus is as much as our pickup. I mean, we can, we've carried close to 2 tons in our Volkswagen bus before. And I mean, it definitely taxes the bus, but it does it, And that's with just a little tiny, basically the equivalent of a lawnmower engine in it. So, it's a great vehicle.
That's awesome.
So
tell us about what's happening with this pickle juice here.
So pickle juice, like other sports drinks, like Gatorade, for example, is sold in grocery stores under the category of isotonic drinks. And what that means is that it's a 0-calorie sports drink that helps with muscle cramping and what have you. And it has traditionally been used by athletes, and even as far back as in ancient times, it was used by the Roman army when marching, because it does hydrate you, or it helps you stay hydrated rather, and it also prevents muscle cramps. It helps muscle function. I know when I've done, in my feeble attempts to do, at Human Performance, forget what those tests are called, where they hook you up with all the
VO2 max.
VO2 max tests and that sort of thing. If you can definitely, especially for kind of some of, not the big muscle groups, but also for like your heart, for example, if you drink a little bit of pickle juice, and I'm not talking about chugging this whole thing, I'm talking about a few sips, what you'll find versus when you don't drink pickle juice is you'll find that there's a more even readout on the patterns of your heart. At least there was for me.
Okay.
And I know from the various professional cyclists that I've talked to over the years, because we do sell our honey to quite a few of them, at least 4 big ones that I know of, like right now, that use our honey. They also, and when we've done just kind of given away some samples of the pickle juice, they say that our particular formulation, it's a very mild formulation, so it makes it easier to drink under extreme performance conditions. So, like in other words, if your heart's torquing and you're going nuts and all that, you typically don't want to drink something because it may cause you to regurgitate, or to get sick or something like that. But pickle juice, you can drink it at a higher level of bodily stress than you could other drinks, like say a sugary drink, without ending up with maybe some undesirable consequences.
Like upset tummy.
Exactly. So, but it's particularly good for endurance type events. So everyone from the mom and pop that are going out for a 30-mile ride to the person who is participating in a century or some other much longer ride, they can benefit from drinking pickle juice. You can also just drink it on a regular basis, and it will, let's take a football game, for example, because there was a football game, I think it was the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Dallas Cowboys, and they gave all the players pickle juice before the game, and across the board, the performance was noticeably better. And a lot of that has to do with no muscle cramps, the evenness of your internal organs working better, and just general hydration being better. So, and I developed this according to what I've seen help me personally, but also based on feedback that we got from other persons who make their living by competing in professional sports. And so
awesome.
Especially endurance sports like cycling.
Yeah. So we're super excited to try it out.
And I'm super excited to get feedback, good or bad.
Yeah, most definitely. We'll give you all the feedback.
One other interesting thing is that a lot of people don't know this, but there is another pickle juice company out there that is selling a product that is simply water and salt and rosemary oil. It's not actually pickle juice. It's not the byproduct of the pickling process.
Okay.
And this is. And that makes
Okay.
all the difference in the world. The other key thing about this product is that there's no, what's it called, yellow number 5, the dye, the food dye, that they typically put into a lot of pickle juice drinks to give it kind of the color of cucumbers. This doesn't have any dye in it, so it's clear. And typically whenever you go to pickle something, your brine is usually clear, and that's why ours is clear. So
Awesome.
that was actually a requirement of one of our major retailers. They said, hey, no
Fake pickle juice.
no fake pickle juice, yeah, because they'd been burned pretty badly on that before. And so we wanted to make a natural, more honest product that benefited athletes and just everyday people alike who were experiencing muscle cramps. Our two biggest consumer groups for the pickle juice are folks that are above 50 years old.
Okay.
In other words, not quite elderly, but definitely on the second half of life, and younger people who are extremely active. So that's our target market, and hopefully we hit it.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do all we can to get the word out, test it out. I know one of my teammates is super into pickle juice, and
Cool.
he's that's one of his stipulations too, is that it's the result of like an actual pickle
Right.
process. So he'll be super excited to hear that.
Yeah, that's critical. That's critical. Yeah, it unfortunately the other company that made their product out of just water and salt and rosemary oil, they got so high in terms of sponsorship that they were sponsoring some of the world's biggest races.
I think
one in
I
particular.
saw him at Hotter than Hell a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Like in.
Well, even the Tour de France, they were a sponsor of
really?
the Tour de France, and that just boggles my mind that there would be no due diligence as to, is this actually pickle juice? Because if they had bothered to even look at that, they would see that it wasn't actually pickle juice. It was not the byproduct of pickling like this is. The other key thing is that this bottle here, and we're going to have other products that we release later that are the frozen type. They're you just squeeze them and like tubes that
gel
you can,
kind of
like a
thing?
gel,
Yeah.
or either a gel or like a pickle pop is
Okay.
another example. Anyway, we're going to be coming out with that.
Like what do you call those things?
It's like
Water
a-
pop, or like it's like tube of
it's
juice
frozen.
or gopher kind of tube.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be coming out with those products, but this is the initial one, and the shape of the bottle. We paid so much attention to detail on this that we even custom made the bottle, the lid, the wrap, everything about it, so that it could be easily opened, but also not spill once people were using it in high stress situations.
Oh, awesome. So is this like you mentioned earlier, like taking a few sips beforehand? Is like how many serving sizes is in one of these bad boys?
So let's go ahead and crack one open, because I'd be interested what your reaction is in terms of taste.
I mean, my dad makes dill pickles, so I am a big pickle guy.
So this is 4.4 ounces, and this would be enough for. So whenever I go out for a ride, it's usually like 60 to 70 miles, and this is enough for that entire ride. You don't want to drink it all at once. You just want to sip it. So
Yeah, that's good. That tastes good. And I notice right off the bat, like you said, you formulated it to make it more drinkable in
Right.
like a high stress environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it tastes just like pickle juice. It's just not as like acidic or
scratch your
vinegary.
throat.
Yeah, it doesn't scratch
Yeah.
the throat.
we that was critical, because whenever we were doing road testing, we noticed that a lot of people, like there was one guy that I ride with a lot, and he's in really good shape. I mean, he's an incredible athlete. And one thing that was happening with him is, well, one of the reasons why he's such a good athlete is he's really able to control his breathing.
Oh yeah.
That's his key, and to get that rhythm going. And so what he would do is he would take a shot of, not of our pickle juice, but of another pickle juice, and he would cough Well, that would completely disrupt everything. And so, so this is designed to not tickle your throat so much that you end up having coughing fits. And that's just one example of things that we thought about when developing the product. So, the other, as you can see, it's clear.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
So, I like it.
Yeah, it's good. Speaking of riding, I called you up the other day and you said that you'd been on a ride, like it was only like 15, 16 miles, but you were in the red the whole time.
Oh, yeah,
is that typical Conrad
No,
training
no.
strategy right there? Or?
Well, it's a lack of training strategy that leads to that. It's like it's more. Well, all of my easygoing rides were done 20 years ago when I was actually more in shape to ride. You know, now it's kind of like I get frustrated that I can't get from point A to point B in the time that I want to get there. So I try and get as close to that time as I can, and it's like average speed. I want the average speed to be high. I know that my average speed when I was younger was always say like at this level here, or at least for me it was at a level that I wanted to be at. Now it's kind of like down here. And so, you know, I try and make up for that by, you know, going as fast as I can. And so I'll put it in the top ring, or, you know, in a higher ring than I would normally travel in, and I'll just try and keep my cadence, you know, at around, I don't know, 94, 96, somewhere like a
nice and high.
Yeah, something that's high for me, you know.
Yeah.
And so I'll do that, and then the downside of that is that the next day I was pushing it too hard, and I feel like I got hit by a Mack truck. You know, it's like, you know, you've had a really intense ride when your whole body is sore. Like there's not. It's not like, say, what I imagine it would be like in a boxing match where like your head is sore and your hands are sore and maybe your chest muscles are sore. It's like everywhere is evenly sore. That's when you know you've had a really intense ride. Like your big toe is as fatigued as your deltoids. You know, so. I mean, that's how I judge a good ride. But most of the time, though, you know, I have to consider the fact that I'm like just a few months away from being 50 years old, and I have to compare myself to other people that are 50 years old. And among them, as long as if I were to take an imaginary group of 50-year-old males, and if I were to say I want to be in like the 15-20% upper part, not the 15-20% lower part. Then I'm happy with that, and you know, so. But this year will be the 26th time that I've participated in the MS 150.
Okay.
And
I wanted to ask you about that.
Where Round Rock County is actually gonna. We have a Round Rock County cycling team, and what I love about it is that it is just regular folks that go at a moderate pace. No one's trying to prove anything, you know. And I think that at this stage in my life, that's where I need to be, is kind of, you know, right there, because if I'm always trying to, you know, one up myself and try and do better than I did the time before, or set a personal best or whatever, then it just kind of makes it like a dog chasing its tail. Like you're never going to get anywhere, you know. So I like to look for other things, like, you know, how long can I keep, let's say if I want to cruise at 17 miles an hour, 18 miles an hour, whatever the target is, how close to that can I get without deviating, you know, to where, in other words, how even can my ride be? And so my goal now is whatever the ride ends up being, the evenness of it is what I'm looking for. Like, is my cadence steady? Is breathing steady? Is the heart rate steady? Is there, what I don't want is like spikes like this, you know? And the pickle juice definitely helps with that quite a bit, actually. So.
Yeah, you guys have nice roads up here too.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, the big problem that we face up here is well, the good thing about this area is that when there are hills, they're like long rolling hills, and there's nothing that, like if you go just over off of what is it, 360. There's some hills that are like this, you know, a few.
Yeah.
But here, you know, everything is very smooth and easy, and you're not so exhausted that you can't do anything the rest of the day. So you can go out for an early morning ride and come back and you still feel pretty good, you know, and you're not too exhausted.
Unless you hit that wind out east, you have the wind.
Yeah.
Then you
Yeah.
get that full body exhaustion like you're talking
Yeah, oh
about.
yeah, yeah. Funny story about, I used to live in an apartment right off of Palmer Lane before it was all developed.
Okay.
And every day after work, without fail, no matter what the weather was, I was out there riding, and I had 1 hour to go 20 miles. It was out and back, out and back. And almost every day, it was right around there, maybe a minute or two, either above or below, but it was right where I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
But then one day I got out there and I didn't realize how strong the wind was. And I thought halfway into it, the wind was at my back. I was like, wow, I'm killing it. I'm on fire. This is great. And then I turned and I faced the wind and it was like, oh crap, that's what's going on. Because it's like you think when you're going, it's like, wow, I'm on fire. This is awesome. And then you hit that wind and you're just like, oh boy. And so that one ended up being like essentially a 2-hour ride instead of a 1 hour ride because it was 10 miles coming back in just a god awful wind with rain and hail and all this other, well, the hail wasn't at the beginning, but it was at the end. And it was just like, this is terrible. So, yeah, I don't do those kind of rides anymore. I just want to have fun now. So,
yeah.
I mean, but anyway, yeah. So, but anyway, the big challenge now in Williamson County is traffic because there's so many more people moving here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I originally used to ride in Austin out of 360 and the Pennybacker Bridge and that.
Yeah, we still do that a lot, but I mean,
traffic, people
Yeah.
are like trying to hit you, or they're not trying to hit you, at least in most cases. But I mean, like when I would ride out there was not much traffic at all, and that was back in the early 90s.
that's mind blowing because there's always
It's traffic. I know. It's like,
always
yeah, it's
BKs and 360 and around 5. You'll get to ride. You know how there's like a few rides, especially. Where can we find your 2 products? So we've got the Good Pickle Juice and Round Rock Honey.
Sure. So Good Pickle Juice will be in HEBs starting. It'll either be March or April. Most likely the beginning of April.
Like at pretty much every HEB
The whole
in Texas.
state. Yeah. Well, not everyone, but most of the HEBs throughout the state.
Okay. Cool.
This is a new company. We haven't sold a single bottle of pickle juice yet. So as we do sell it, that I'm expecting it to go from 0 to 60 almost like a rocket ship. Because all the POs have been POs or purchase orders. They've been building up for a while now. And so when we finally release to the stores, I think that it's going to take 3 or 4 rounds of orders to satisfy demand. So there'll be that. And then the honey is available through our website, roundrockhoney.com. We do free home delivery as long as you order at least $20 online. That includes all the areas in downtown Austin, all the way down to Buda, all the way out to Lake Travis, all the way out to the airport in East Austin, and all the way to the northern part of Georgetown, and so including Cedar Park.
Wow.
So we have, and also with the Round Rock Honey, you can buy Trader Joe's, HEB, some Walmarts, and some Kroger's. So.
Wow, that's some serious reach.
Yeah.
And shipped across the U.S.
Yes. Yeah.
For those of you who don't have access to Round Rock Honey at your local grocery store, or if you're not in a pretty substantial delivery zone.
Right.
So cool. Thank you, Konrad.
Yeah,
Glad to
thank
have
you.
it as part of the Night Owls family, and we'll be looking to get some serious podiums this year.
All right. I'm excited. Sounds
All right.
good. Thank you.